Hello, everybody. I am going to struggle with this chat like I do every week for a few minutes. And struggle with this chat like I do every week for a few minutes. And hope that one of you guys gives me a signal letting me know that. And struggle with this chat like I do every week for a few minutes. And hope that one of you guys gives me a signal letting me know that. And struggle with this chat like I do every week for a few minutes. Hope that one of you guys gives me a signal letting. And then if you guys can let me know if a couple things. If you can hear me, and if you can see me, and if you can see the chat. Those are the three questions that I have. So I'm gonna look on the chat and see if one of you guys can give me. Okay. And do you guys see what I'm writing on the chat or no? Because this week, I actually have some links to share with you, so I have to make sure that you guys can see this. Can you see what I write on the chat? Cannot see. Let me see. Okay. So let me work on. Sorry guys, I lost the connection, so I'm back. Let me know if you guys can hear me now and if you can see what I'm writing on the chat. So testing, let me know, please. This chat is very important today. So if not, we will do it another. You know what? So let me know if you guys see it, and let me know if you guys see the chat. If not, I'm gonna find a different way to get the information to you. Sorry, guys. I'm like the worst. You guys should be used to me giving you a hard time with this chat, so bear with me. Okay. Or what we written in once we have hit send. I don't know. Okay. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to give you some links, and whoever watches the webinar live can get access to these links. So that's what will happen. I'm going to reference the websites, and that's not going to work either because I'm giving you examples. I really need you to see this chat. Let me try one more thing. Okay, so this is what I'll do. I will write the examples out. So I will write the examples out when I'm giving them. And then you guys can email me at urbanbailout@gmail.com and get the access to the links or the written notes that I would like to share with you. That's what we'll do. We can, so hopefully that makes sense. So when I give you examples, I will, I'm going to write them down, post them up a little bit, and then what I will do is I will send them to you on, I will put them in the comments of this video. That's what we'll do, because I want everybody to get them. Sorry for that. I was hoping that you can do it on the chat. We can. Moving forward, I hope everyone has had a great week. And this is very exciting. I hope that everybody got to practice what we talked about last week. Let me give you a quick recap. So last week we were talking about developing a phonics foundation and the importance of developing a phonics foundation, right? And we, I gave you some resources that you can download the phonographs or the phonemes in the English language. And some people, some lists are going to say that there's 44, some are going to say that there's 70 something. It's going to vary if you just, it's going to vary if you just look on the internet for a list of phonograms or phonemes. So I gave you the list that I tend to generate and work with. And I also gave you the list that has the sound that each of those phonograms make. We went through kind of a technique where you're going to take index cards, blank index cards, and you're going to sit down with your child and you're going to test them. And you're going to see, identify which of the phonograms or the phonemes, whatever you want to call them, and of those sounds that the child does not dominate yet. And then you're going to work on those 5 sounds at a time until your child knows those, and then you move on until you get through all of them. So that is kind of the first technique of building phonics foundation. Very important that as we do that, we really take a comprehensive approach and go through the other skills that we've gone over through the webinar, because it's not just phonics, it's really developing the ear, it's really understanding that we're reading for meaning, is really having enthusiasm. It's all of those things together, because sometimes children cannot sound out words, and it's not necessarily because they don't have the phonics foundation. There are more than one, there's always more than one thing going on. So let me check on you guys real quick. Checking on you guys real quick to make sure everyone's fine. Yeah, you can, on the chat, I'm looking at that. You can, I see your chat comments. I see everyone's. So you're right. You can send us send me your emails and I'll send you guys the links and the notes. That'll work. So back to, and if you have any questions, you can put them there. I will check every few minutes. Back to the other screen. So that's what you're going to do. But I want to make sure that you understand that there are always multiple things going on. And so if we want our children to read, particularly if they're having difficulty reading, we want to tackle this in a comprehensive way, because what you'll find when you're going through the list of phonograms is that a lot of the times the children don't know they don't know their sounds. And so that's one of the reasons. But sometimes you will go through all of those sounds. Most of the times the children do not know all of their sound if they're struggling with reading at 2nd grade and 3rd grade, for sure. But if you will also find that some children do know most of those sounds if you give them to them individually. So there's a disconnection between the sounds and then when they're put in words together in context. So that's why this kind of the second piece, one of the other pieces that I go over, is to always go back to the text. That's one of the tips that we covered last week, is to go into a book and find the sounds that you're working on and make sure that you're making the connection between the sounds that you're working on individual index cards, and then turn around and see them inside of words and put them in that, and put them in a context and the meaning. So that's very, very important. So those are kind of the things that we did last week, and that you will find that are very helpful. But we have to continue to build on that, and we have to continue to make sure that we're putting the pieces together all at once. When you work on phonics, when you work on any of these skills that we go through the webinar, make sure that inside of your session, so let's say you're working on this for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, make sure that you are working up on the phonics on the flashcards for like 10 minutes, and then turn around and do the book, find them in the book for like 5 minutes. Then you do a listening game. Then you blend some sounds using the sounds that you're practicing. Then you maybe read aloud for 10 minutes. Make sure that you're incorporating all of these skills, almost like when you do high interval training, if you guys work out, you will do something for 15 seconds, and then you do something else for a minute, and then 15 seconds and a minute. So make sure that you might, do high intensity for 5 minutes, and then do low intensity for 10 minutes. And it's called intervals, right? So you're gonna do the same thing when you're working with your child doing an intervention. You're going to do intervals, and you're gonna cover all of these skills and try to blend them and do more than one skill at the same time. So for example, when you are doing the individual sounds with the index cards, and then you turn around and do them in the book, following them, that's a little bit of reading out loud. That's a little bit of just paying attention to looking at details in words. And of course, that's finding them in context. That also gives you an opportunity to look at new vocabulary if you run across a new word. So it's a lot of intermingling and blending these skills into one, into one drill. So that's what you want. You want to take a comprehensive approach. So that's kind of what we covered last week. And I know that it's a lot to go through, but it's very important. And it's kind of like one of the probably most tedious and rigorous and just kind of dry skills, but you have to do it because children are having a hard time reading, and at the same time, there's no time to do this in school. So this is one of those things that is missing from the foundation if your child is a struggling reader, and there's no time to do it any other place. So it's very important. So one of the things that I wanted to go through today, and I wanted to do it with the examples, and I'm improvising now, was a few things, but this has to do with how to deal with variations of the sounds and how to kind of put the phonics together I apologize. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to improvise this. But here we go. Let's just take a stab at it, okay? So one of the things that I like to do is to do nonsense words. So nonsense words, a lot of preschool teachers use nonsense words, and they're really good. And it's pretty much, you know, just making up words with the letter sounds that don't necessarily mean anything, or if a child has made up a word using their loose letters and you just kind of sound it out. Now, that's really great in preschool, and children are allowed to do that. They're allowed to just write sounds out and just say them, and they're allowed to assemble them, or a teacher might assemble a sound together, assemble some letters together and have a child sound it out. And in preschool, you do a lot of that. Well, in some preschools, you do some of that. Maybe if our children did more of it in preschool, we wouldn't have the issues. But what I find interesting is that once you get to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, of course, nobody works with nonsense words, or a lot of people don't work with nonsense words because they're just that, they're nonsense words. And we want children to kind of have it right and work with real words. The problem is, or what's interesting about that is that, because it's not that it's a problem, but is that when a child approaches an unknown word, any word that they're trying to decode that they don't know, a new word, a new vocabulary word, just a new word that they are unable to read, that word is a nonsense word. Whether or not it's a word of the English language, if you don't know how to read it, or if it's a new word to you, it's the same skill as a nonsense word. You're just using your phonetic skill set to decode it. So one of the things that I like to do is to encourage parents to continue to practice using nonsense words. So when you have your sounds that you're working on, like let's say it's those 5 sounds, when you have those sounds, assemble them together, even if they don't make a particular word, and mix match them, move them around, and try to sound out that word, even though it is not one. So it'll be a nonsense word, but have your child use his or her knowledge of those sounds that you're working on to make up a word and to blend it. To make up a word and to blend it. So that's kind of very important, because again, all new words are nonsense words to a child that can't read them, whether they're a word or not. And so this gives us an opportunity to see them apply it, and then just try to get that rhythm of decoding. Like as you're decoding, when you approach a new word, you're decoding it, and then you're using your sense of your internal sense of rhythm, your internal sense of beat, your kind of like your word flow. You're using all of that. It's happening very, very quickly, but you're using all of that to try to decode a new word. So that's what the child will do. We'll have 2 sounds or 3 sounds or 4 sounds that you're working on, and you guys can kind of sound them out in a nonsense word. Very effective strategy. Let me check on you guys. Making sense? Got it? Let me just see what you guys are saying. I don't want to lose. It's a lot to go through, and I realize that. And so I don't want to lose you guys in the process of. Okay, so nothing on here on this chat. So you're good. So okay, so moving on. So that's what I want you to do with the nonsense words. I want you guys to take those sounds that you're working on and kind of arrange them. So when you're working on those nonsense, or when you're working on those sounds, when you have, like, let's say you have sound, you can start assembling words not just nonsense words. You can also try to assemble words with the sounds that you're working on. Take some of the known sounds and kind of put them together and assemble actual words. That's also something that you do. A quick tip about blending. If you think about what singing is a blended, like there's no better way to blend sounds than to sing them. So sometimes what I do is that I sing an entire sentence or I sing some sounds. So I'll put the words, look, I am like tone deaf, whatever people call it. And so I'm definitely not going to sing on a live webinar. But if you just practice taking just some sounds and just kind of humming them or singing them, you realize that if you want to practice sound blending, you can kind of sing them, and that will get you to a blended sound, right? Because if you harmonize, if you're singing, you're definitely blending. You know, the sounds are running into each other. That is blending. So that's a quick tip, that if you have like a nonsense word, that you can sing it, or if you have a new word, that you can sing it, and that's the way to blend it. We don't want our children to read like this or to look at everything and feel like they have to decode in a very structured way. So yes, we want them to recognize the sounds, but we also want them to be able to blend those sounds. So that's another skill that you have to work on, which we don't have to cover now because I would need to share my screen. But so that's one thing. Moving along to the next thing that I wanted to go over. The vowels. I had a question about the vowels, and the A makes the A sound, which we call it the long sound, and they're short. So A and A, E and E, I and I, O and A, and U and right? So you have two sounds. And really, guys, you have many more sounds than those. Those are just the common ones, but like I've said before, A has all kinds of sounds, not just two. So one thing, one kind of general rules, there's various rules that we will go over, not in this webinar, but there's various rules. But we know that when there's a silent E at the end, that's a classic silent E rule, we know that it makes the long A. So for example, if you look at the word plate, we know that there's a silent E at the end, and that means the A is going to make the long sound. If we think about the word Pete, the name Pete, silent E at the end, that means it's going to make the E. Fine or dine, silent E at the end, that's going to make the I sound. Globe, yes, globe, silent E at the end is going to make the O. Huge, silent E at the end is going to make the U sound. So there are different instances where it's going to make the long A sound. Go over your rules. So we haven't gotten to a webinar on rules, but you can Google spelling rules, for example. Google that, and you will have a list of rules if you just kind of want to get to it. But one very common one is the long E, or if nothing else, Google the silent E rules. And those are pretty much readily available on the internet, and that will give you a little bit of insight. What you're going to do whenever you're going over the rules is do the same thing. You're going to practice the rule, you're going to practice an example of that rule, and then you're going to go into a text. You're going to find that rule, and then you're going to make a note of it. You're going to highlight it. You're going to circle it. You might even write that word. Same thing that you did with the individual index cards. You're going to practice the rule, and then you're going to find it in text, because you always want to connect it to meaning or connect it to a text. Because what happens is, a lot of times with children interventions, we get them to drill, but they can't put things together because they don't have it in context and meaning. We read for meaning. We read because to pass a test, to answer questions. We read for pleasure. We read for information. So we always want to put these rules and put these sounds inside a book, in context, and then make the process fun. Make the process fun. Make the process a collaborative effort. I said this at the very, very first webinar. Our children, people in general produce, and people in general learn better and remember things. Memory is activated when we feel safe, when we feel loved. We tend to do better and work with and try harder for people that we love. And so it's very important that when we're doing these things, even if they're very they're rigorous, they're very rigid, that we move our body, that we have fun, that we laugh, that we say a few, a joke here and there, that we break up whatever is giving our child a hard time, because we want to kind of keep the energy flowing and we want to have an open intervention, right? So we want that to happen. So, for example, to go back to the vowels, let's say we're doing the silent E, makes a long vowel sound, right? Makes the vowel say its name. That's usually how you explain that rule. You want to find in a book or in a magazine, anything like that, all of the instances or a few instances where it's making the long A, it's making the long E, it's making the long I, it's making the long O and the U because of that silent E. That's going to help. Once your child sees that pattern and how that connection and when the sound is different in the text, and you find that pattern, when your child is on his or her own, then the child will be able to say, oh, it doesn't make the short sound, it makes the long sound. And so your child will be able to do it independently. But, that takes practice, and one of the best ways to do it is go through a rule or go through a sound and go back to that book and look for it in context. So that's to answer a question. I had a question over the week about teaching the long A's. So going over to the tricky part of today, without being able to show you my screen. Okay, I'm just checking. You guys are okay? So going over so difficult. This is so difficult to check on your, okay. So going over to what I was going to say. So when you go through your phonograms, you will find that some sounds have the same, some sounds have, some letter combinations will have the same sound. So for example, A, as in day or say, right, is written with an A-Y. So when you show your flashcard, right, when you make your flashcard, when you make your phonograms card, that A is going to, that A-Y is going to make the A sound. Simple enough. But then you're also going to have A-I also make the A sound. For example, in pain, A. So we have that A-Y makes the A sound. We have that A-I makes the A sound. We also have that E-I-G-H makes the A sound. So weigh, right? Or weight. That's going to have that. And we have the E-Y, like they, A, also makes that A sound. So you have right there 4 letter combinations plus the single A that are all making the A sound. And when you're going through these flashcards, when you're going through the flashcards that you make, you want to, at least initially, separate them. So when you go through your list, kind of make sure that they're not overlapping so that you can really know if a child knows that particular phonogram. But once you go through the phonograms, once you know that your child knows them, it's good to put them all together and play a game that so a child can start recognizing words. Because some of this, and I hate to say it, it's just going to be a matter of practice. It's just going to be, that's why it's so important for children to have print all around them. That's why it's so important for children to be reading all around. Because sometimes there is no rule. There's no rule that's saying that you can't write, well, let's say clay. There is a rule. You're not going to end the word in an I with, you know, a regular I. But let's say clay. Your child has to be able to see and know that rule enough to know that if it's clay, it's going to be C-L-A-Y. To be honest, there's no rule. There's a way for it not to be C-L-A-I because you can't really end that word in the I with, you know, with little stick in the vowel I. But what's to say that you can't spell it C-L-E-Y? There is no rule. That just comes with practice. Clay, day, ray, that's going to be your A-Y. And your child has to see your, has to just get acquainted with which one of these sounds goes with this word. So one of the exercises that I like to do is to have, let's say if I was doing clay, right? So I would have CL and I would put it on a flashcard. And then I would have the three sounds, the three letter combinations that make the sound. The AY, the AI, the EY, and the EIGH. I would have those four sounds that make the sound A. And I will also have the letter A, right? And then I will have the CL on this side. And then I would pair it up and say, what looks right? Which one's missing? Or what doesn't look right? And you would have the child identify which one just feels right or which one just looks right. And that's just one of the strategies that I use. So another example of that, I actually wrote a number of them. Double E, EA, and IE all make the E sound. So B, for example, or tree, that's the double E. The single vowel letter also makes the E sound. EA, like T, that makes the E sound, but it's an EA. Each, right? EA makes the E sound. IE, chief, handkerchief, right? That makes the E sound, IE. So I would do the same thing. I would have the sounds that make the letter combinations that make the same sound. And I would have on the other side single letters or a combination of letters and make words and just go through them and have your child see which one looks better. And I will find words inside a book that make that sound. Different words inside a book where the sound combinations pop up making that sound. So it's about a child knowing the sound of that letter combination, and understanding there's other sounds that make other letter combinations that make the sound, but having enough exposure to enough words, right? So this is why it's so important to expose our children to text, for them to have enough exposure to text to be able to just feel and see and identify which of these letter combinations is actually the one that they're going to be able to use. Let me check on you guys. Is this making sense? Great. So far I'm with you. Or you guys are with me. So, you know, I just want you to, I cover this because I don't want you guys to get discouraged, because it is not the easiest thing. It's not the hardest, it's not the easiest, especially when you have one sound, one letter combination that makes four sounds, or you have four sounds and 6 different combinations make it. That's why it's so tricky, and that's why sometimes people are like, oh, you can't use phonics, phonics doesn't work. No, there are rules, there are exceptions, and you know, it's not cookie, you know, all the words, it's not cookie cutter. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more work, but it's doable and it's the best way. If your children know all of the sounds, they really know them, and they can blend them, and they can have exposure to lots of letters and get lots of words and get a feel of what looks right and what is right, then your child will be able to read and overcome the fact that it's not just straight phonics. It's progressive phonics. It's phonics plus, right? So that's something that I wanted to go over. Other combinations, let me see, questions? Okay, other combinations that make the same sound, and I'm going to email this to you guys. But for example, O, right? So you have the OA, like oat. You have the OW, like bow, so OW, which is different from cow, right? Ow, same OW. And you have OE, like toe. So OOO plus the letter O. We have 4 letter combinations that are making the same, 4 letter combinations that are making the same sound. What are we gonna do? We're going to, first of all, make sure that a child knows that sound and that letter combination, and knows that that letter combination makes that sound. So that's part 1. And 2, be familiar enough and comfortable with the idea that different letter combinations are going to make the same sound. And then that becomes about exposure, and that you kind of drive the point home why it's so important to just have more and more exposure to written text. Because the more exposure, it's like the more you do it, the better you get. And when you're doing these things, it's very important when you're doing these things to, again, have fun. One little technique, when you correct the child, if your child does something wrong, don't say no, don't make a big deal out of it. If you're like, for example, here are 4 sounds. We're gonna write let's go back to, stay on O. So which one of these 3 sounds, we have the T, and we wanna write the word oat. Which one looks right? And you're gonna put the O and the A, the O and the W, the O and the E, right? Let's say they put O-W-T, oat. You're not gonna say no. You know, you're not gonna make a big deal out of it. You can just say, here, get another index card, a blank one, and then write it, an O and an A and a T, and say, now let's take a look at this. Oat is O-A-T. And then you can write the word oatmeal out, right? You can, you know, rolled oats. You might even go get a bag of oatmeal if you guys eat oatmeal. So it's okay. They may not always get them right, but you want to play with that and get their eyes acquainted. But it's very important that when they get it wrong, how you correct and kind of, it's not that everything has to be great, but how you correct that child is going to make a difference. We're going to make sure that, you know, you just drill it. I mean, all you guys are on the same team. All you're trying to do is to make sure that your child knows the sound, understands that the one letter combination can make multiple sounds, and that multiple sounds can be made by different letter combinations, and that all of it is okay. And that we have to practice looking at it in context. That's what we're getting at. Ow is O-W and also O-U. So mouth, M-O-U-T-H, and then cow, C-O-W, right? So those are other ones. And then aw can be just an A, making the short sound. A-W, like jaw. A-U-G-H, like taught, and A-U, like auto. So just giving you different examples, and I will email these to you. And I have a really good list too, so of examples. So what I'm saying with this is the exercise is for you to take a word and try to build it with the different sound, with the different letter combinations, and get a feel of what, get a feel of which one looks right, and build that eye out, kind of like in that like kind of internal sense of what looks right. So that goes by pretty quick because I'm not. Let me check on you guys real quick. Everything okay? Okay, looks good. No questions. Moving on. The last thing that it's related, and it's, again, I can't show you because I can't show you this link, but for your frequency words, I know last week somebody was, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about frequency words or sight words, and I really am for more on the phonics side and then on the sight word side. And I'm always very vocal about why. I think just rote memorizing words through sight words doesn't allow for the child to move from left to right, their eyes from left to right, and then later on creates a fluency problem. We have to give the children all the tools that they need so that they'll be able to decode any word. That's vocabulary knowledge, that's root word knowledge, that is having a phonics foundation, that is having a sense of beat. All of those things that we're building will allow them to decode any word, because you want them to be able to decode new words in first grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, but also in seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, in law school. You want them to always be able to decode any word. In order to decode any word, you don't need a list of words. If you're teaching your children to read with a list of words, then you're limited to that list, right? That limits your child. You're setting a limitation on the child. If you give them the individual sounds, if you have them understand the phonograms, if you have them get familiar with what looks right, if you develop all of these other skills, then your child will be limitless, because they can apply those skills to any word for the rest of their lives. So that's something that's very important to me. So what I want you to do, and I will send you this list, right? So when you're working on sight words, or when you're working on high frequency words, one thing that I like to do is, well, two things. One thing that I like to do is to go through that list and understanding that you're going to go over your phonograms. Really identify the words that are not following phonics. So for example, day. Day still follows phonics because A is a sound. So AY is one of the phonograms and D is one of the phonograms. So day is definitely not a sight word. Day follows phonics. So it's taught as a sight word. It doesn't need to be taught as a sight word. Yes, it's a frequency word. Yes, a child needs to know it. But if a child knows that A, Y together makes the A sound, then that too is a phonic. You can read that through phonics. So go through your frequency words, go through your sight words, and make sure that they're not following phonics, because you can actually take those phonograms and build out, practice writing out your practice out writing your sight words with your use of phonics. Don't teach a sight word as a sight word or as a whole word unless it really cannot be broken down into your phonographs or phonemes chunks. Does that make sense? Because if you do, you're really If you do, you're really limiting yourself, right? And you're teaching something that's incorrect. You're saying this word does not follow phonetic code. Really, it does. So make sure that it doesn't. Go through your list. So once you've gone through your list, you will find those words that really will not follow anything. And those are the words that now you will practice as sight words. And the way that I like to do those, yes, I write them out. I always say don't teach the word as a chunk. Always do it, you're writing out your word. I always say use the body, move around the house, move around the table, just, use as much as range of motion as you can to learn those sight words. And then the other thing that I like is to take a dry eraser board or just a sheet of paper, but it's better if you can just do like a dry eraser and write the sight word, right? So you're gonna write the sight word, and then once you write it, erase one of the words. So let's say it's city, C-I-T-Y, right? And then you write it, and then you're gonna, once a child writes it, then you're gonna erase the I. What's missing? The I. C-I-T-Y. Erase the Y at the end. What's missing? The Y. Write the Y. Erase the C. What's missing? The C. And you're going to practice that one sight word in different variations. That is a way for a child to learn the spelling of that sight word, which does not follow phonetic code. So that's how I do sight words. So because I was unable to share, and interact with the chat, the webinar is like at 50, at 9:50, and I know that we wasted like 5 minutes. So it's a little short, it's about 45 minutes, but that's perfect, we're gonna stop it there. What I will do is that I will email you guys, and also when I save it, I will write some of this information in the comment box. So that's what I will do. I hope that you guys got a lot of this. This is kind of technical, and the best way to do this is to watch and practice it with a child, and we're just gonna just go. What I am going to do in the next, I'm not going to do it next week, probably the week after that, we are going to do a live demonstration with a parent and child. So if any of you guys want to volunteer, if you are having an issue with your child, probably I think a second grader would be best. I will do a consultation with you guys before the webinar. We will practice at least once and do it virtually. And then I'll go over what I'm going to do with you and your child. And then we can do the live webinar, doing it kind of what I would go through, me, you, and the child. And then I'll bring you into the webinar, and then the people on the webinar will be able to see us, both your screen and mine. So we're gonna try that, not this week, but the next week, in doing some of these exercises live, so you kind of see them with a child. That's what I really wanna do. So the best way to kind of work this out is to practice it with your child. And if you have any hiccups, again, just feel free to email me. And I've been doing pretty good at answering everybody's emails, so you guys should all be very, very happy. I have been doing really, really good. I answer emails in about 2 days. So give me about 2 days and just practice this skill. And then you give me about 2 days. If you have a hiccup and you need to get a hold of me, I will try to get back to you within 48 hours for anybody who's watching the webinars. So that's it, guys. Again, I hope that this is helping. I'm going to check on you one more time in the chat room. And yep, so I have some emails here. And I will send this to you. I hope that you guys, that this is helping. I know that it is helping some of you guys because I'm getting great responses, and that's what it's all about. Remember that anything that you learn, pay it forward, teach somebody else. I am here to do this with you. Send me your questions, and I will be in Baltimore, New York, Brooklyn, DC, in Philly in the months of March. I will post those dates. If you are in Brooklyn or New York, I have space available. I will post that on Racy Readers because I don't have the schedule, but I'm definitely open to hosting more workshops while I'm there. If you would like to donate, I definitely would appreciate your donations because we're still working on my airfare and my travel expenses. But I will keep you posted on Raising Readers. If you have any questions, just email me. Bye, guys. See you next week. Oh, I have another email here. Let me make sure that I copy paste it. All right, guys. See you next week.